Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a new episode of GWENT. Today we will be looking at the Scoia'tael faction, and we're gonna review a bit how the Scoia'tael starter deck works. We've done the Carapace in our prior video. We've spent quite a lot of time in the game. Mostly did a lot of quests and tried to do the Stupid Challenge. I think I'm pronouncing it right. I only have like 12 games to play on the last mission of the challenge so far. So, all things in all, we've unlocked loads of card kegs. And we got quite a bit of a collection started there. So I'm quite happy about that. So, let's head over to the deck builder and we will investigate. Oh yeah, by the way, I did create and toy around with a lot of stuff. So the Scoia'tael starter deck. Well, as a prime thing to mention, the deck uses Invigorate. So Invigorate boosts all units in your hand by 1. I don't know if I can't remember if I touched the provisions game mechanic in our previous video, but provisions are basically like food. You have a certain amount of food that you can use while building a deck. Each card has a different food requirement. For example, 8, 6, 5, 4, 4, whatever. There's also these are also displayed on the left side of the card right here in the deck. So, for example, either Amir Ap Sivni costs 5 food and has a power of 7. Okay, so what these provisions mean is you cannot abuse, I don't know, OP cards. So you can't build a deck only with cards that have 10, 15 provisions. Basically, you will deplete your provision limit and you won't be able to finish up the deck. Or you'll have to put in flimsy stuff to make it fit. So that's an interesting game mechanic that basically prevents players from abusing OP cards and building balanced decks. As I said, GWENT is almost entirely made about balance and board control and board supremacy. Yeah, so let's get to the actual deck. So we've got Invigorate, as I mentioned. From my matches with this deck and Invigorate, and what I've read on the internet, it's good source, right? So you'd rather use this on your first round, and you'd rather make sure your first round has only creature cards, units, in your hand. Why is that? Because, well, except monster decks, you'll be pretty much OP, and there's a lot of cards that receive boosts if they are boosted themselves, so you will win the first round, pretty much by default. You'd want to keep some of those boosted creatures for your second round, because you'd want to push it. But there's also, the deck has also a lot of shenanigans that can help you pass around the second turn if you don't feel strong enough and win the third round, winning the game. The match, sorry. So we've got Invigorate, we've got Geralt of Rivia, we all know what that does. Destroys an enemy with 9 power or more. Milane, damage an enemy unit by 4 or damage 4 enemy units by 1. Depends where you play it, either in melee or ranged rows. Sheldon Skaggs, damage an enemy unit by Sheldon Skaggs' current power. Now, this actually benefits from Invigorate, and there's another card in here that you basically give a dwarf in your hand +2 power. So it's a great synergy. Sheldon Skaggs can insta-remove like a removal, but it has its own power, so basically you get to build up board while removing enemy board. Duragai of Vol, lock a unit. So I think I touched on what lock does in our previous video, but Lock is like a silence, but it's not like a silence in Elder Scrolls Legends. So lock basically removes all the card effects. So if you have your opponent has a card on the board that self boosts itself every turn, with this lock you basically remove that ability, and it does not go away once Dorgai Vol is destroyed. So the lock is permanent unless there's Purify, which we'll get to that soon. So that's what lock does, and it's not actually silence because it does not take away the buffs. So if a card base power is 7 and is buffed to 9, you lock the unit, you remove its abilities like Order or self-buffing or whatever, but the buff still remains. We've got Pathfinder Gale, damage a unit by 1, cooldown 1 if you control only Scoia'tael units, damage a unit by 2 instead. And it's a human. I'm not sure if this is Scoia'tael. I think it's given by the card. It's green. I'm not sure. Usually humans are like grey and stuff. I think it's Scoia'tael. So if you only control Scoia'tael, you deal 2 damage instead of 1, and you're gonna have to take care when to play or how to maintain its bonus, because this deck has other stuff than Scoia'tael only. So make sure you maintain that bonus. You know what I mean? Symphony, deploy on the melee Purify unit, deploy range, give an allied unit vitality for 4 turns. So this is where Purify comes into play. As I mentioned, if somebody locks your unit, that unit cannot use its abilities. Purify remove all stasises, meaning it can remove bleeding, it can remove lock, I don't know exactly what other things can remove. These are the only mechanics that I saw Purify to remove. Elder Bear is just a bear, an angry bear, okay? Inserting the trap. So if you remember Yu-Gi-Oh! On Yu-Gi-Oh! You had Trap Hole. Whenever an opponent summoned a creature, you could have activated the Trap Hole and destroyed said creature. Well, this is a bit more flimsy. It does not entirely destroy the creature, but it does 5 damage. So, Ambush. This is the mechanic when your opponent plays on this, when your opponent plays a card. Now, be careful because, as in Yu-Gi-Oh!, you could have done interesting stuff, like, you know, except that in Yu-Gi-Oh! It was manually triggered. You were actually, you had the mid-phase in which you decided whether to flip the trap card or not. So here, you have no input on that. So whenever your opponent spawns a thing, this ambush activates a card immediately. So your opponent might be profiting from that and spawn like a 1-cost, 1 power creature and just get rid of your trap, and you'd basically lose 4 damage because only 1 will apply and the other 4 will be. You can also flip the card and damage a unit by 3, but it's, as you can see, the effect is a lot less rewarding. But it has Zeal, so you can place that and flip it right away. For example, to use it on a creature that is about to be self-buffed and only has 3 HP, and you want to damage it completely. Okay. Rehead Dragoon. Dragoon, yeah. Deploy melee, move an enemy unit. Deploy range, move an allied unit. Alright. Mahakam Defender. Every ally turn on and boost self by 1 if this unit is boosted. So now you understand why the Invigorate comes into play, because you can have this in your hand already boosted and you just drop it and it's fire and forget. It'll just climb up, well, unless damaged, because that's where your opponent will be targeting most likely, while you can play other stuff to deal with your opponent cards. Mahakam volunteers. If there's a dwarf in this row, summon a copy of this unit from your deck to this row. So, like in the monster decks, there's that one in which if you have dominance, you get to spawn the copy from your deck. a quick note on this, it is powerful, but you have to be careful not to have both of them in your hand. If you have them, then the effect is irrelevant. You don't get any extra spawn because the card is already in your hand and not in your deck. Mahaka Marauder, gain vitality, bonded, gain vitality, bonded. An interesting keyword here. So if you have already a Mahaka Marauder on the board, which already had deployed gain vitality for 2 turns, when you deploy the second one, and the first one is still on the board and not dead, so they're like brothers, and they'll be holding hands, and the second one you play will get vitality for 4 turns. So vitality is actually like a self-boost, but you can only self-boost 1 per turn. Okay, so you cannot apply like in Elder Scrolls Legends Rallying ×2, where you have a rally, you boost it twice. This is just you cannot have vitality +2. It's just vitality for X turns. Rehead Officer, damage an enemy unit by 2 or boost an allied unit by 2. War Dancer, damage an enemy unit by 1 if Elven War Dancer is already boosted, damage an enemy unit by 3 instead. Again, why Invigorate? The hero power is excellent, because if it's already boosted, you can deal 3 damage instead of just 1. Just saying. Dwarven Agitator, if you deploy it on range, you boost a dwarf in your hand by 2. So there you go, you can either boost a second Mahakan Defender on your subsequent turns, or you can pretty much add more buffs to Sheldon Skags and make it like a 6 if I'm not mistaken. Dwarven Skirmisher, and this is the last one, deploy melee, damage an enemy unit by 3, if it survives, boost health by 1. This is not actually that good, but it's good as a, let's say as a finishing card, because if the unit that you damage survive, you also get like 1. So the difference is that deals 3 damage, and you gain a +1. That's like dropping a 4 power creature. So I think it's okay. I think it's okay. All right. So this is the deck. This is how it works, and basically you just have to push and play aggro. So let's have some fun, and wish me guys luck. Alright, we're fighting against a monsters deck. All of them are creatures, or units. I just need to get rid of that trap card and get this hand boosted. Okay, that's good. Sheldon Skags. Oh yeah. All creatures, we can perform the buff right away. Uh-oh. Let's try and diminish what my opponent is trying to achieve with Thrive. Damage unit by 1. If you control only Scoia'tael, deal 2 damage. Okay, acceptable. So, we'll see right now if it's Scoia'tael or not. If it will deal 2 damage or not. But I think it's Scoia'tael. It's given by the green banner on the card name. Yeah, that's Scoia'tael. Because also when you open kegs, the cards that are Scoia'tael have those arrows. Yeah, it's like the card back. Yeah, the card back that you can see on the right side of the screen. Thrive. Oh, so there's more nasty stuff with Thrive. How can we remove things? Purify unit. If you purify, I think you remove the thrive or not. I will definitely lock one of those thriving creatures. Damage an enemy unit by 4. This is not the time to do that because let's try and get rid of one of those. Goodbye. So let's lock one of the bugs. Those insectoids also have armor, so it's good to touch on armor and what it does. So it basically protects your card's power from the next X amount of the damage, where X is the amount of armor you have. So if you have 2 armor, if I deal 2 damage, the creature does not experience any damage, but the armor is destroyed. That's bleeding. Damage an enemy unit by 4. We can do that. And we got rid of one of the bugs. The one that had thrive. Oh, silly me. I think I could have used my archer there. Whoops. Well, my bad. Still not familiar with all the activities that you can do during your turn. Another insectoid. It's 20 to 16. I can keep Sheldon Skaggs to get rid of that thriving creature next turn. Purify unit. If I can allow for something to grow past 9, I can use Geralt. Hard to think exactly what will my opponent be boosting. Probably not my greatest play. Could have buffed Skaggs because I have the agitator in hand. Oh well. Ooh. This is really, really, really complicated. 26 to 19. Let's get rid of that. And the tables have turned. So Geralt is really pivotal in some plays. But if you play it too early, and my opponent has ghouls that can consume stuff. See, my problem, you can only use Geralt once. Alp, vampire deploy, give an enemy unit bleeding. Whoops. I keep forgetting about that damn archer that I have. I can deal damage, and it refreshes. It has a cooldown, it's not a one-time use only. Purify, deploy range, give an allied unit. Okay, let's purify, remove that. Damn it. Forgot again. I have to make like some post-it notes. Okay, so what I've seen is that if you still have doable activities, then you'll have the end turn button. if you have nothing left to do, then once you place your card, or you've done everything that you can do, the end turn basically activates itself. So let's deal some damage. It would be best not to attack the Thrive creatures. Why? Because once they thrive past the point in which your opponent does not have any cards to sustain the Thrive, like a Thrive creature gets to 6 power, but your opponent only has 5 power cards left in his hand, the Thrive, if you don't damage the thriving creature, then it will not gain any more boost. So it's good to know and good to play against monster decks. So my opponent just passed. Looks like we got off easy with the first turn, but he did spawn some bulk of his stuff. So what you can do is you can actually play more, but we don't actually want to play more. We don't want to waste our hand. We have 3 buffed creatures left, and we are going to keep them for the next turn. Oh, by the way, a different mechanic in the seasonal gameplay. This is classic, so the seasonal cards have resilience, so once you place them, they will carry on to the next turn, but will destroy themselves if you go into turn 3. If you put cards in your second turn, they will carry on to the third turn. So resilience, they do not go away once the turn ends. But in Classic, everything is cleared, so the board starts from scratch. Oh, excellent. That is actually good. We have this this dwarf that can buff itself. We only need to use the Dwarven Agitator to provide the buff. Let's boost it. Markham Defender. So once we drop that, we will be able to constantly generate +1 per turn, because it's already buffed. Necker. Oh, this is Thrive. Okay, so I went first because I won the previous round, so that means my opponent will have the last word on it. So the last card played will be my opponent's card, which can be a surprise. I mean, maybe he kept or something for I don't know, like a very big boosted thing just to turn the tables around. It forced you to play all your trump cards. Happened to me, yeah. Archispore, this does damage. Ouch. Okay, so on Death Gasp, sorry. On a Death Wish, if it dies, it applies the damage again. So it actually does 4 damage in total once it shows up on the board and once it leaves. The bat, deploy melee. Damage enemy unit by 2. I'm just gonna boost this one. Why? Because my opponent will probably try to get rid of its buff, so it does not continue to self-buff itself. If I prevent that, I'm forgetting a thing. So yeah, it's pretty much a risk right now. Trigger Bronze Ally units Death Wish, yeah. If my opponent has Geralt, then we're pretty much screwed. It's 11 to 11. But I have 18 points in hand. But no damage. No damage. Absolutely no damage. So it's made the biggest cards win, I guess. If my opponent manages to deal enough damage in a turn, like deal 5 damage or deal 2 damage to 2 creatures, that's basically like summoning a 4 power unit. Okay. Wow. So we really were lucky because we boosted the Mahakam Defender. And look at that. It's survived and it's still pumping. So we're gonna drop this buffed up version of the Dragoon. And it's the only thing that we can do. And the next card will be the unbuffed version. So it's a gamble. Do we win or do we not win? We'll just have to move some creatures around. It will be funny. I'm gonna drop it on the melee row. I'm not gonna focus more than 2 creatures on the same row, because my opponent can still play an action that deals 2 damage to all creatures in a row. So I'll be losing 6 instead of 4, and that's not really something that we want. Come on, come on, come on. 24 to 14. If my opponent has consume an allied unit, oh damn. Thriving activates, damage activates. What? I think he failed. My opponent misplayed. Ah, that is excellent. Why is that? Well, he could have eaten the Archispore, which would in turn deal would have dealt 2 extra damage on Death Wish. So the score would have been 21 to 22. I hope I can seal the game with this. That's 9. My opponent has to cross or deal damage. Actually, he only needs to do, like, 5 damage and boost something by 5, and I... Uh-oh. Connection lost. We won! A great victory! Yeah, let's put the GG. There's the GG button. So yeah, this is how the Scoia'tael works, and how you can have fun with it. We're slowly gaining ranks, so that's great. Oh, a completed contract. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for watching. A very big shout out to my channel supporters, and I will see you guys next time. Cheers.